Hey guys, it's Jane. It's not quite Friday. I didn't make it on Friday. It's Saturday morning, but I'm here, so let's go. We're going to have a Friday read / weekly wrap up where I just tell you about what I've been reading and what I'm reading right now. So I finished off the 2 books that I was reading last week, which is Amer by Jane Austen, which you know, I've read so many times now that there were very few surprises, but I very much enjoyed it nevertheless. It actually made me want to go and watch Clueless again. For those of you who don't know, Clueless is not that loosely based on the story of Amer. I might have to have a rustle through the garage this afternoon and see if I can find that DVD. So yes, I very much enjoyed that. The other book that I was reading this week was this one, Bartimaeus and the Amulet of Samarkland. I finished this one as well. This is divided into 2 different points of view characters. There's a first-person point of view is Bartimaeus, who is this millennia-old 14th level djinni. He can take any kind of form. This is him dressed up as a gargoyle, basically. But he has all sorts of different forms in the story. His voice is very enjoyable to read. He comes across as like a grumpy old man who's very unimpressed to have been summoned by the other point of view character in the book, Nathaniel, who's written in 3rd person. All his sections are in 3rd person. Nathaniel is an 11 or 12-year-old apprentice magician. A couple of years ago, Nathaniel was humiliated by a magician called Simon Lovelace. And so he's spent the last couple of years trying to work out how to take his revenge. Nathaniel made a scrying glass and has discovered that Simon is in possession of an object, a magical object called the Amulet of Samarkand. And so he summons Bartimaeus and gives Bartimaeus the job of going to steal this amulet, which is where all the action for the story starts off. What he doesn't know is that the amulet is quite an important piece of magical arcana, and that Simon has it, having stolen it, and that he's planning on using it to overthrow the current government and place himself at the top of the new government as Prime Minister. So there's quite a kind of mess that Nathaniel has blundered his way into. And yes, so, high adventures ensue. I enjoyed this. I particularly enjoyed the voice of Bartimaeus, who's very snarky and upset about life. And so the whole story with Simon and the amulet and Nathaniel and whatever is completed in this one, but and Bartimaeus is returned to the other place. So I've ordered the second one of these. I'm not 100% certain whether any of the other characters apart from Bartimaeus will be recurring. It could easily be just Bartimaeus being summoned back to the world in a whole new way with whole new people in the next book. So anyway, but as I said, Bartimaeus is the most interesting character to my mind in these, so I'd be looking forward to that anyway. Another book that I finished this week was The Roth and the Dawn by Renée Ahdieh. This one's pretty much done the rounds of BookTube. I'd heard a number of people speaking about it, and I found it at the library, so I borrowed it. It's a sort of retelling of 1001 Nights. There's a Scheherazade character, a young woman who is in the palace of the king, and she is nominally married to the king, but he kills his wives at dawn every day and has a new one. But she has a particular gift of storytelling, and she is telling him a story and leaving it at a cliffhanger so that he needs to give her another day. And so each night she begs for another day's life, and that's basically the story of 1001 Nights has this frame story about Scheherazade, the storyteller, and then there's the stories that she tells each night. In this, we have the same sort of thing. We have our Scheherazade and our king. We have a few stories that she's told that are retold in the story, and they're all based on like very famous ones of the 1001 Nights. So we've got the Aladdin lamp, we've got Bluebeard and his wives, and yeah, so, but we also have things that are happening outside the frame. So we have some sort of explanation of why she happens to be in this situation. And the answer is that one of the wives who previously has been executed at dawn was our Scheherazade character's best friend. And so she has actually volunteered to come to the palace, volunteered herself with a view to entrapping the king and killing him. However, after a fairly short time in the palace, she realizes that things were not as she expected, and against her better judgment, finds herself becoming more and more sympathetic to the king. The problem is there are all these other people outside of the palace who are totally on board with our Scheherazade character's first impulse, including the young man who she grew up with, who they had intended to marry. She hadn't told him before going to the palace what she was intending to do, and he's a bit of a hothead, and so he is much less than impressed with the king, and he is planning on carrying through with the kill the king plan. So yes, the Roth and the Dawn doesn't actually give us the end of the story by any means. The next one is, I will put the cover, I'll put the cover here because I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, they've also got that at the library, so I'll be looking to get that one out soon. The other thing that I've been reading is I've got back into the Vorkorsigan Saga. I talked about the first two, Shards of Honor and Barrayar, a month or more ago. In the gap, when I wasn't making videos, I actually read 3 more of these, The Warrior's Apprentice, The Vor Game, and Ceteganda, which were the first 3 Miles books. And I'm totally hooked. I'm totally hooked on these. So this week I read Borders of Infinity, which is actually, I understand the term is a fix-up. That book is actually 3 short stories stuck together with a frame story, and the short stories were previously published independently. So Borders of Infinity is really a short story collection. Yeah, and at the moment, I am in the middle of reading the next one, which is Brothers in Arms, which is the next proper novel. I'm loving these Vorkorsigan books. Initially, I was so in love with Cordelia, who is a main character in the first 2, Shards of Honor and Barrayar. I was thinking I wasn't going to have room in my heart for Miles, Cordelia's son, but I'm totally in love with Miles as well. So that wasn't a problem, as it turns out. I'm thinking I should actually make a video where I talk about this series as a whole rather than just try and rant about individual books. But one thing I will say is that initially I spent a year or so hearing other people talking about these and being put off by the prospect because there are so many books in the series, and I was like, oh, how do you even wrap your head around starting at the beginning of a 20-odd book series? You know, it's pretty off-putting. Now, I'm sort of 6 or 7 books in, and I'm like, if only there were more books in this series is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling excited and energized by the thought that there are so many more books to go. So What I will say is, if you have thought about reading the Vorkorsigan books and been put off by what I was put off by, don't let it stop you. Don't let it stop you. These are fantastic stories. That's what I'm up to at the moment. I better stop talking because my husband's out with the baby and he'll be coming home fairly shortly. I hope you're all well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.